Hey, yo,
How's it?
Jono. How are you, my friend?
How's it, bro? How's it going?
So lacquer. Thanks for asking. Not as lacquer as you though, because you sent me a picture this morning and it was absolutely such a beautiful view. Where the hell are you?
Yeah, I'm on the near Port Alfred on the Wild Coast, and I have to say it is outstanding here. Unfortunately, it's very bright back there, so it's blown out. But I'm with my back to the river mouth near Kleinamunda. It's outstanding here.
Bro, it looks incredible. So yeah, keen to kick off today's show with you. We said we want to talk about how to price your products for maximum sales and profit. That is today's topic. If you guys are watching, I want to ask you, maybe just drop a comment, your name, where you're tuning in from, and if you've got any questions, let us know. We're going to try and stay on topic today to keep things efficient, as well as I'd say just simple, easy, straight to the point, as much value as we can. But if there are questions, we would love to answer them for you. Yeah, I think just drop it in there if there's anything. Today's topic, as discussed, will be mainly about how to price your products, because I think it's one thing founders struggle with, because we think that if we price it as little as possible, we're going to get maximum amount of sales, but sometimes there's no profit. We think that we price it for profit, but then nobody wants to buy because it's too expensive. And I think a lot of people find themselves in that dilemma, like, where should I actually put my product or my service, and what will be fair to the consumer or the person on the other side, and what will be fair profit-wise for the business too. So looking forward to seeing who's tuning in today. Please drop your name. Let us know where you're tuning from. Jono, my friend, keen to kick this topic off with you, man.
Yeah, I mean, and I think it's a fascinating topic. And between us, we've sold information products. You've personally sold lots of consulting and agency style products, but you've helped a lot of e-commerce stores sell hard actual, what do you call it, like in real life products. So I think there's a lot to be learned here. I think the most important rule that I've learned about pricing, and obviously we're going to look at everything. We'll look at discounting. I think we'll look at bundle creation. We'll look at offer creation. There's a lot to unpack. But my first answer to anyone is, like, I'm nervous about pricing, is always go high. like the cost of pricing too low is for me, it's too severe. And the thing is, if you've overcharged, you can always bring your price down. But one thing I learned from Real Meal, in the beginning, we started with a 3,000 Rand course. People were very happy. And especially, and we'll talk more about this later, but with a product that requires effort from the client, the more they pay, the more invested they are. And we found that when we dropped our price at one point by 80%, so it became a 600 Rand product from a 3,000 Rand product, then the number of complaints we had went up. The number of people who swore by the program working went down, and it just became a massive pain. And so if you start high, you can always come down, and you can always find ways to add more value. But if you start low, you're squeezed with margin. You don't have flexibility to change the model or to put in extra effort, because you're going to get swamped with orders or customers and not have enough room to play with. So my opening statement is always start high. And what's your view?
Yeah, I think you definitely need to. It's easier to lower your price and do the occasional discount and sale and so forth, than having to try and increase your price once the market has gotten accustomed to it. So if you have a small business, nobody really knows who you are. So if you've priced yourself too low, you can always up your price and be almost like a little bit safe and sound, knowing that, well, only 20 people saw my ads, or only 100 people saw my ads. There's still a huge market out there of people who don't know me. But I think if you're building brand and you build brand around a price, it's very, very hard to increase price and get people to still convert. But it's a lot easier to drop price and see conversion skyrocket. And what we've seen is that if you start low and increase price, conversion rates start to drop a little bit. because people go, you know what, this is, they may be getting greedy, it's capitalistic, whatever the situation may be, whether that is the case or not. You know, they don't care about you having to pay your kids' school fees. They don't care about you trying to make the business profitable so you can feed the people in the business. They don't care about that. They only care about themselves. That's what the consumer is focused on. So when you increase the price, it becomes a situation where people go, you know what, this is not worth it anymore. However, when you lower the price, the deal gets more attractive. So I 100% agree with you. Start high, start at the top, work your way down, leave room for offers and specials and stuff like that. That's definitely the smart way to do it.
What's your advice to someone who's never priced anything? And I mean, so just for context, when I talk to guys who want to start personal development products, there's a very well-established value ladder. You know, you have your tripwire offer, which is basically a self-liquidating ad campaign, and that can be, you know, $20. And then you work the tiers. So we found our sweet spot was 600 Rand for our self-liquidating offer. That was our initial online course. And then from there, there's a 997 Rand thing. And then we did well at about 2,970. And then after that, it gets much bigger, 10,000, 20,000, 30,000. But you've told me some stuff about average order offers, the economics of an e-commerce store. Where do you sit with that?
So it starts with margins, right? I think if you're playing in the direct-to-consumer space and you want to bootstrap the business, bootstrap meaning you want to take your own money and try and get that money to make more money so you can grow the business, and you're not taking any outside money to fund the initial losses that you will make when you start a business. Because how many businesses are profitable within the first 3 to 6 months? Very few, you know, if any. So it's understanding that if you're bootstrapping this business, you only have so much cash available. Like the average person that starts a small to medium-sized business, you know, has a couple of thousand rands worth of savings. And if you're going to take that money and build a direct-to-consumer brand or product, then it's assumed that you're going to bootstrap it. And bootstrapping it would require you to get profit back into the business as quickly as possible so you can continue to fund it. Okay, with that simple logic, then we can go, cool, how do we actually make the most amount of profit as quickly as possible? And it all starts with working out your gross profit margin. So a lot of people actually confuse markup with gross profit margin. They're not really the same thing. Quick disclaimer is markup is what you add on top of the price, and that percentage, that percentage itself, what you've stacked on the cost price. So if the product is $50 and you put it up to 100, you know, you've got a markup of technically, you know, 100% or whatever. Now, gross profit margin is very different. It is working your way backwards from the retail price itself, and then determining what percentage of the retail price versus the actual cost price is profit. What percentage is profit here? And if you're running a business, D2C, direct to consumer, and you want to make as much profit as possible, you need about 50% gross profit margin, which is about 100% markup on your products. That is, I'd say, like the core fundamental starting point when you want to price products in the e-commerce space, is that you need to make sure that you have enough profit actually in the product in order to keep funding marketing and growth, etc. Unless you've got an endless runway of cash sitting behind you that you can just blow and spend in order to acquire customers at a loss, like Amazon did back in the day. So starting with the gross profit percentage, making sure that's 50% or more. We've seen brands with 70%, 80%, sometimes even 90%, which is more in the luxury space, obviously, because you can charge more because you're selling on emotion and a perceived value, etc. But most brands, I'd say, sit between 30 to 45, which is, in my opinion, too little when you're starting out, and it needs to be in the 50% range, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that's I made that mistake with an online store I launched. I remember actually launching it and immediately just chickening out because I realized my margin was actually about 30%. In fact, no, my markup was 30%. And I remember running ads and making a few sales, and I just thought, like, I'm not going to do this. And I was selling information products at the same time, and my profit after, like, including ad spend at the time was like, I think I was making a GP of 50% after deducting ad spend, and then to do the same revenue and make like 5% margin. It wasn't worth it for me. In fact, I didn't know. I thought that people were still making a profit somehow on 30% markup, because that's how retail works, you know.
So in essence, if you think about it, let's use that as an example. There are people who make a lot of profit on 30% markup, which is a very small GP percentage. But if let's say they have a 30% GP gross profit margin and they killing it, they're most likely selling volume. They're most likely selling thousands of units per month, and they've got a distribution channel that allows them to do that. So, for example, it is someone who started a brand. They had a 30% GP, but Dis-Chem said, "Hey, we'll put it in all stores." And we allow you to make 30% or 20% or whatever is left. Those brands still do well. Why? Because they have huge amount of access to the market. And that distribution channel, aka Dis-Chem or Clicks or whatever it is allowing you to sell volume. And even though you're making a smaller percentage, we still need to remember that you're banking rands. You don't bank percentages in your bank. You bank actual tangible rand value. So a small percentage might end up being a lot of profit purely because you are selling massive amounts of volume. But the reality is when you're starting out with a business and if you're bootstrapping, like most people, you don't have those connections. You don't have the head buyer at Dis-Chem in your pocket going, "Hey, I'm going to sell this product to you. Are you keen?" "Yeah, let's do it." Like that doesn't happen to the average person. So you're going to have to launch your product. Nobody's going to know about it. You're going to have to run some Facebook ads, hope to make some sales. And I think that is where people get a little bit stuck between a rock and a hard place, because the profit in that actual initial sale is not enough in order for them to keep funding the business. And therefore it becomes a situation where they go, "No, I'm rather going to close this down," or digital marketing doesn't work, or the agency is not what they said they were going to be.
The agency. It's the agency. It's always the agency.
So in my life, I can tell you, having run an agency for 8 years of my life, or 6 years of my life, but obviously still majority shareholder in it, is that sometimes it is us. We're not perfect, but the reality is that often it's actually just the product, the pricing, and the actual vehicle that's getting you into the market. It's probably not the best vehicle. If you're going to pick a direct-to-consumer vehicle like Facebook and you're going to try and do this yourself, you need to understand it's going to be expensive to acquire customers. You need to understand there's obviously things that you're going to have to cover. You're going to have to cover 1% Shopify fee. You're going to have to cover a 5% payment transaction fee, especially if you combine instant payment gateways like Stitch, PayFast with Pages Now, and buy later options, which obviously have a higher percentage. There's fulfillment fees. There is software fees that you have to take into account. And for a fun fact, anybody watching and making notes, we've worked with over 500-600 companies now, and I'm actually building a little bit of an AI tool that can help people plan businesses better, forecasting the initial 90-day process and beyond that. But we have so much data where we understand the average GP an industry needs. We understand the average ROAS industry has, and that allows us to better guide someone to launching the type of product. The point I'm making is, actually, I lost my train of thought there for a second. What were we talking? Well, where was I going with this?
So I think we were talking about making sure there's enough margin and getting your first customer. So like how to get from 0 to 1 essentially.
Thank you for that. So in essence, what I was saying is, like, if you start with hypothetical 50% GP, 10% of that is going to be deducted by fulfillment, by Courier Guide, BobGo, whatever it may be. Now you're sitting with 40%. Another 3% is going to be deducted by software. That's what the average software costs is for an online business. It's 3% of your revenue. So now, as opposed to 40, you're sitting with 37. Now another 5% is going to be eaten up by payment gateways. Now, as opposed to 37, you're sitting with 32. Then there's another cost, Shopify 1% transaction fee. Okay. There's another percentage gone. So that 50% becomes 25% very quickly, based on all the things that you actually need to pay in order to get the customer to say yes to the product, aka Facebook ads, Google ads, website costs, etc. And then getting the product to the actual consumer, which is essentially fulfillment costs and everything else that goes into it. And then you realize you've only got 15 or 20% left to run the whole business, to still cover salaries and staff and your own life, etc. So I think that's like the misconception people have. Really, everybody assumes they're going to sell volume from day one because they're going to have the lowest price. That's just not what we live in anymore.
Well, that's a great segue into the next topic, which really interests me, is the psychology of deals and basically, how consumers that are non-rational. Talked about, well, I'd love to talk about anchoring bias and how to frame discounts, because one of the things that I've had lots of chats about is like people think they just put the product up and then sell it and then people will buy it. But to stop someone in their tracks while they're scrolling, and stop them enough for them to think, hang on, let me just check this out, and then click on the page to read through it and think that not only do they have to buy this, but they have to buy it this very second. Otherwise, this opportunity will pass them by. Because I don't think a lot of people realize how difficult it is to get someone to stop what they're doing, take their credit card out, like fill in the details. Sometimes, which, you know, if you don't have Google Pay set up, you still have to do that to verify. And then inevitably there's like a hiccup or something to go through with that sale. There has to be such a compelling reason to do that. And so I'm interested on your take. Like, what is your advice to someone who's trying to get feet through the door of their online store?
Yeah, again, it's like I believe paid media is really the best way to do that. I think a lot of people depend on word of mouth and referral traffic in order to start growing that business, and that's fine. But the problem with that is that's not consistent and that's not predictable. So you need to bargain for paid ads if you really want to build and scale a business aggressively. Unless you've got all the patience in the world and it's a side hobby, then by all means go onto Facebook groups, post about it, take your time. You're not going to be overly stressed because you're not running, you know, a lot of expenses every single month to cover staff salaries, etc. But if you are going to launch the product in a business and you're hitting the market from a D2C perspective, then Facebook, Google Ads, these platforms are the best places to start. And you need to take that into consideration when you start pricing your products. The average sale across all the industries is roughly between, on the low end, $100, 80 to $100 a sale. On the high end, it can get as high as 400-500 Rand a sale, depending on what you're selling. So that is what it's going to cost you to get a customer. And that needs to be factored into your price, essentially, when you price your product, whatever that may be.
Can you just clarify that? So you're saying that it costs between 100 and 400 Rand of ad spend to get someone to buy something?
Yeah. So, I mean, again, every single industry is unique, right? So we've seen that the food industry, for example, have much lower cost per purchases, because if a grocery store is online, whether you buy bread from this company or that company, like it's bread and you're looking for the best deal, and the barrier to buying bread, for example, or any other groceries is very low. So the lower the barrier to entry, the easier the sale is, and the lower the cost of the sale is. And the more thought that has to go in, the more logic that has to go into the decision. Like if you're buying a specific TV or electronic device or a supplement that's really expensive and you're questioning whether it will really deliver the benefits that you thought it would, like that requires more budget and requires, unfortunately, a higher cost per acquisition. And you need to factor that into building into your price. And I think when you're launching your product or service, the price, you should factor in what the average cost of acquisition is ideally going to be. And I think obviously we have that data. It's not readily available for everybody. I mean, unfortunately, we maybe we can build a little bit of a ecosystem for people to check out these things at a later stage. But it's a situation where you need to factor in at roughly around $150, I'd say, to 200 Rand a cost per sale. We're actually working with a company now that we might provide some seed money with. It's a very cool concept. It's crushing it in overseas, and it's something that's not in South Africa yet. It's a really cool idea. But we're sitting there going, is the margin actually enough? And what is the actual cost price going to be to get a customer? And looking at that, the business planner is showing me that we're probably going to run at a loss for the first 6 months until we get repeat purchases in. And I think that's something we can also maybe touch on at a later stage, is that the initial sale will very seldom be profitable for someone. So if you price your product, ideally you want that product to make a profit on day one. However, it's going to get hard to do that, and that's okay. But hopefully your product, your product and customer service, your product quality is good enough and your customer service is good enough in order to get someone to come back maybe for a second or a third time in a 90-day time frame. And that will allow you to essentially start to make the profit that you ideally wanted to. So as much as we want to sit here and go, listen, you have to factor all these things in, yes, but also you can't overcompensate and get too rigid with it, because then you might price yourself out of the market, for that specific product or service. And I think this is a great segue to Where does perceived value come in? How does luxury brands probably price, etc.? But I think if you overthink it, you can easily outprice yourself. And then there's other variables and things that you need to be aware of in order to justify that price to the consumer. Because nobody's going to want to buy a bottle of water for $100 unless they understood that this bottle of water came from freaking the Alps, or it's the same water that Jesus walked through, or stood on back in the day. So it's a situation where people are going to want to understand why the product is priced at that level, and it's about us educating and explaining that value to them so that they can justify that price in their heads.
Yeah, I mean, when I entered into, I was a cowboy with online ads for 7 or 8 years. In fact, it was only when you and I started working together that I really became privy to proper deal assembly, and it's something that South Africans battle with. A lot of us see what the American guys are doing, and they have these really long form sales pages and really, like I would say, aggressive discounting and bundling strategies where, there's this thing that a guy called Russell Brunson does where he builds a stack throughout a webinar of all of these different value ads that he's going to give you. And he'll say, this is $20,000 worth of value. And today you can have it for like $997, which is still like quite a big ticket. But based on all the value you're getting, it's an awesome deal. Yeah. And I remember doing that for the very first time with Real Meal with an information deal, and just people bought it. It was just like the most satisfying feeling to create this bundle. So I suppose I'm curious on your take with like when that's the right thing to do and when it's not, and when you've seen it work and when you haven't. My experience has been that it's a great thing to do, but perhaps not for building a luxury brand.
No, to be honest with you, we've seen the problem with luxury brands is that people have great quality products. The markup is obviously extremely healthy. The problem is they're struggling to articulate the value to the consumer to understand why the price is the price. And we've seen this. If you are a Calvin Klein, or we're in Sandton City. If I go up to the Dolce & Gabbana store, there's going to be 2 people waiting to get into that Dolce & Gabbana store. Right? Because I don't know if you know, but they literally have like a queue outside. They only allow 4 or 5 people in at a time. And then everybody else has to wait in a queue to get into the store. So if you had to really think about how Dolce & Gabbana and these guys position themselves, one, the brand is decades old, right? So let's just start there. This brand has been built through billions of dollars in sales and revenue that has gone into getting people to making them believe that this product is the most exquisite thing that you can buy. And at the same time, there's a status included in this as well. So when it comes to luxury products, at least this is my opinion, people purely buy it for status and not really for the quality of it. So if you are going to launch a luxury brand, then you need to understand that. Like there are a percentage of people who are going to want to buy it because it's great quality, but that is the people who really have all the money in order to just spend it on that and go, hey, thank you so much. These are affluent individuals who go, yeah, let me try it out and see what happens. The average person that buys Dolce & Gabbana, what we've seen, are actually not really rich people. It's that they've saved up 4 to 5, 6, 7 months to go and buy that product. Why? Because of the status they're going to have when they actually wear it around their friends. So it's not that they're affluent individuals necessarily more than anybody around us. It's just that they so badly want that product that they're happy to wait 6 months to save the money or spend money on their credit card, put themselves in debt in order to get that luxury item, not because of the quality, but because who they will be to their community by wearing that. And I think that's the biggest mistake luxury brands make, new luxury brands make, is that they think people care about the quality. And there is a percentage of people that do, but those people usually also have the funds to just go, cool, let me try it out and see if the quality is actually as good as they say it is.
I read a case study this week on, do you remember Burberry? You know the brand Burberry?
Yeah.
So Burberry, their initial product that they became famous for was actually this amazing raincoat. Anyway, in the early 2000s, they started discounting with the London sales. And so people could get, because their margins are so high, they discounted to clear stock. and they were selling their stock at like 15% of retail. And what happened was a lot of, I don't know if you've heard the word chav, but it's like a slang word for kind of trashy people who live in the UK. And so a lot of like not Burberry customers started wearing Burberry, and it became this thing where people on council estates were wearing Burberry to flex. And what happened was the people at the top tier of the market stopped buying Burberry products. And then Burberry decided to stop discounting, so the people at the bottom of the market couldn't buy Burberry anymore. And 20 odd years later, Burberry is in a world of trouble because they can't save their reputation anymore because they've discounted too hard, and now they're stuffed.
They're between a rock and a hard place, yeah.
Exactly.
That's actually cool, man. I think just to come back to the luxury thing, I feel that if you price your products, I mean, luxury items we've seen people can price up to 80% margin, which is roughly 400% markup. So if a product costs you $100, you can easily sell it for $500. At the end of the day, if it costs you 1,000, you can sell it for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9,000. However, you will have to articulate to people why the price is the price. Like, we live in a world where consumers want to understand where my money is going and why are you charging these prices? Like, explain to me why the product is worth this much. And obviously, we can talk about a couple of things. There's one or two questions that I think will be perfect for you, especially from a membership point of view. And I'm just looking at the comments that are coming through. So this is by no means chronological. So I apologize if I do miss your comment or your question, but I promise you we'll try and get to everybody. The first one is Rian Fenter. So he says, tips for pricing monthly recurring products like memberships. So Jono, I think this is such a great question for you, purely because of the fact that you've had membership programs in the past and you've run it quite successfully. So Rian, if you're listening, this is for you, my friend.
Yeah, it's a good one. So let me tell you two stories. So when I was during lockdown, the weight loss industry exploded, and I used to have a 95 rand a month subscription site. And during lockdown, I did an online course. In fact, it wasn't an online course; it was an in real life course with a whole lot of other entrepreneurs, and we discussed pricing. And they said, "Well, how much can you push your price up without people noticing and without people canceling?" And so I thought, okay, well, I've never tested this before. And another mentor of mine had just entered the game. And he said, I'm not going for 95 rand a month. We're selling a premium health and fitness membership. We're going to go for 200 rand. And because he was my mentor and I really respected him, I thought, okay, well, I'm going to double my price to 200 rand as well. So off I went and changed our membership price to 200 rand. And obviously our revenue doubled overnight, and very few people canceled in the beginning. But what happened over the next 6 to 9 months is we looked at our churn, and the churn actually went up quite a lot, because the difference between a 95 rand a month product or anything under 100 rand and anything over 100 rand is, well, there's a practical difference. And in South Africa, the banks often don't notify you of any transactions under 100 rand. So people forget that they have the subscription, which is like the less awesome thing. It doesn't say wonders for your business that people forget that they're a member. But that does help, because it doesn't, we found like billing day was the day we get the most cancellations. But the other thing is that when people are paying under 100 rand a month, maybe I'll rewind a little bit. Membership is providing access. It's very difficult to promise someone an outcome from being a member. And so I will talk about the membership. You have to provide something that is perpetually renewable. So for me, a membership is something where you have to give access to someone who has a tool or to support that people need, where if they're using the tool, they have access to it. But if they don't use it, they have no reason to cancel. In other words, we gave people access to something they could put their data into. And once someone's put their data in, like an accounting software or a weight loss tool, they've got a graph with their weight and some of the food they've eaten, they're less likely to cancel because they've invested into it. And as soon as you push the price over a certain threshold, they start to wonder how important it is for them to keep having that. So for us, under 100 rand was the sweet spot. So we actually eventually relaunched our subscription product and went back to under 95 rand. And we had, just for context, we had members who had been with us for 6 or 7 years at 95 rand a month, who after we switched to 200, they canceled within 6 months because they kind of thought about it and they thought, nah, I'm not that keen anymore. But the beauty of of a 95 Rand a month subscription is that if someone gives you permission to send them updates about what's happening in the platform, you have a very, very warm customer to buy your premium products with zero ad spend. So what we did to show you like how my stack worked is we had a 600 Rand self-liquidating offer. And in that self-liquidating offer was a course that gave you the introductions to our weight loss methodology. And we gave you a 1 month free membership into our app system. And so your credit card details are in the system. It's free. You can cancel if you want, but if you don't, at the end of that month, you get billed at 95 Rand a month. But where we actually made our money was selling our 15,000 Rand program and a 12,000 Rand program, even a 3,000 Rand program. And when we had advertised those online, we needed someone who was looking at the leads, picking up the phone, phoning the leads, like trying to close them. Whereas we just advertised, and we would sell like 500 or 1,000 of these 500 Rand courses, and then just send an email and invite people to a webinar. And in that one webinar, we could sell, a whole bunch of these online courses with almost a zero cost per acquisition. Yandre actually did help us advertise to get people into the webinar, which really worked out quite well. But it reduced the need for a lot of heavy lifting on sales, and it reduced our cost per acquisition to almost nothing just by having a subscription site.
Yeah, so I think just what's the key takeaways there, right? I mean, from a monthly subscription service, it almost has to feel like a payment that doesn't have a lot of pain attached to it. And I think it is giving people something that they want to justify on a monthly basis is worth using. I think that's one of the reasons DSTV's memberships are declining literally month on month, with probably double-digit percentages, if I'm mistaken, purely because of the fact that when you've got Netflix and Prime and Disney and Apple TV and all these other shows and channels, like at what point is 1,000 Rand a month still worth it when you're only watching SuperSport or when you're only watching 2 or 3 or 4 channels? So I think DSTV is finding themselves in that same predicament. It's like, how the hell are we going to pivot and strategically give people value on a monthly basis and then give them a fair price, considering that everybody in the market is underpricing the actual product or service that they are offering and they have been offering for years. So I think interesting. I don't know what's going to happen, but I think SuperSport is going to break. Not that we have to branch off in this conversation, but I think SuperSport is branching off in their own subscription service, which I think is very clever, purely because of that reason, right? So has to be sticky, has to be valuable, and it has to be something that doesn't have a lot of pain associated with it. The higher the price, the more logical processes will go in. Every time you see that bank statement, you see that price there, you don't want someone to start thinking about whether this is worth it or not. And I think
Totally.
you have to fly under that radar, essentially, unless it was like a consulting service, which is obviously something completely different. But if it's just a tool that they use on a monthly basis, I think that's important.
Well, yeah. And so one of the things that I learned, in fact, I've actually bought a few products like this as well, where you get a subscription for an outcome, and that's where it doesn't work. So gym memberships are notoriously high churn. I know that Virgin Active's churn is 15%, which is insane. And that is because, I mean, we were going to talk about Alex Hormozi and how his whole empire started and what he gets to, how his pricing gets affected. But typically, if someone is buying your product because they want to achieve a specific outcome, the fact that they're on a monthly subscription means a few things for them. The one is that there is no ending in sight. There's no when does this period end for me? So there's no pressure, there's no deadline, there's no reason for them to act. And so there's very low commitment. And I suppose that's why we went and separated our offer from having access to the tool versus access to a program. And so weight loss is where I came from, but there are business courses that do this as well, where if you can promise someone an outcome that is desirable instead of the features. In other words, if you say, this is a course and it's a 10,000 Rand course, and these are the things that you're going to learn, people will see it and think, okay, but that's great. And then they're looking for the certification and the value of the education. But if you can sell a course that says, you will have 15 clients paying above market rate in 3 months on this program, that's like, then you can actually attach real maths to it and say, okay, well, if your average client's paying you 50 grand a month and you're going to have 15, you can do the maths on that. And then the course only costs you 50,000 rand. All of a sudden, you've got real economics to apply and you can justify the price straight away. And I think that's the mistake that a lot of people make, where they don't necessarily think about the problem they're solving for the customer. They think about the parts of a business that they can put together, and then like how they can price that for a customer to say, well, if it's 5 parts worth 10 rand each, then we will sell it to you for 45 rand. And I think that's the wrong way to look at it.
100%, man. And I'm bringing up Leonie's question here because it's such a great one applicable to the conversation we're having. She says, I've heard it said that customers think your products are less valuable, cheap stuff, and not worth buying if you make the price too low. Is this your experience too? So this is very true. There's definitely, we need to understand that if you are selling your own branded product, right? So let's say, because there's 2 perspectives. A lot of people sell other brands' products, and those brands give you a recommended retail price, right? So if you buy, let's say you resell AirPods or whatever it may be, Apple is going to say, listen, this is what it's costing you to buy. This is the recommended retail price. And if you undercut that retail price, you can only do it for a period of time. You can't do it forever. Till Apple's going to go, hey, listen, put that price back, because now it's just, you actually influencing the market. So when you retail other people's products, and I've been in this situation before with the retail business that I was a part of, is that when you're reselling other people's products, you get a recommended retail selling price. And unfortunately, then you just need to make it as easy for people to collect it or get it. You need another advantage point. But if you're selling your own brand, and you are obviously creating, let's say you price it at 500 to 600 bucks, and all of a sudden you do a special, and the special is 449. So you're saving 150 bucks basically. And you go, hold on, let me just keep doing it at this price. At some point, the value of that sale, the amount of profit that you are making, will start to decline, because you are now programming your customers to lower the perceived value of the actual product. And essentially they're going to go, it was priced at 600, now it's priced at 450. They're keeping this discount running forever. It's a sale that they're running forever. Those customers are now getting used to that price. There's nothing wrong with that, though, if you have the margin and the strategy to continue competing with other people who's also going to start lowering their prices potentially as well. You know, if that's what the Amazon strategy is. If you think about it, the Amazon strategy is we price everything as low as possible, and ideally we are all about giving customers the most amount of value for the least amount of price, okay, for the smallest amount of price. So there are businesses that succeed in that level of thinking, but what people don't tell you is that they also have the resources and the back end business strategies to make sure that that customer eventually becomes profitable. So they might lose money on the first 6 orders, but they're happy to do that because they know that the average customer comes back, 18 times over 12 months. So they know if we make a loss for the first 6 months, we're going to make 2 times as much profit in the next 6 months or the next 12 months, purely because this customer enjoys our customer service, and the cost of bringing them back every time gets less and less and less and less. And that is due to the actual product quality, the customer service and quality of the actual fulfillment and whatever they have. So yeah, go for it. No, I mean, I've rambled a little bit there, but I'm saying, like, there's different perspectives that you can look at this, and most of the time it's not a great idea to discount your products indefinitely. Strategic discounts around Black Friday and Mother's Day and all these things are great. I do think that makes a big difference, and it doesn't really impact perception that much, but continuous discounts will. I mean, we can still talk about actually just having a low price, because I think that's what Leonie was alluding to, but I felt like I had to share that perspective, is that if you create a product and it's like a mushroom product, for example, and a competitor sells it for 400 bucks and you sell it for 100 bucks, people are going to think that your product is actually crappy quality because it's costing 100 bucks. I think that's what she's saying. I don't know what your thoughts are on that. Maybe you can share 2 cents on your perspective there.
Yeah, I agree, and I obviously default to information products where I perceive. I always look at the price and think, okay, well, if it's cheap, then it's going to be like petty information. And anyone who's selling a course, the moment I see it's really expensive, I think my ears perk up and I'm like, oh, okay, this must be decent quality. I mean, we literally tested that with a 3,000 Rand course that we just discounted to 600 Rand once, and the quality of customer you get, and the number of complaints you get, the quality of customer gets reduced because you're getting someone who wants something like for nothing, and then the number of complaints you get increases. But that's not an information product. I would say as a customer, I would say I'm pretty open-minded. If something is at a ridiculous discount, I do pay attention. But just my personal experience is if I see it discounted forever, I'm like, there's something here. And then if they can afford to sell it for that, why am I paying the full price for it at a later stage? Because now that I know that the difference in what I did buy it for and what they're selling it for now is just profit for them. But that's because I see it as a business model. What I was going to mention actually is related to your own price, and because Amazon and Takealot are so aggressive, one of the things that I've always looked at is the business strategy sentence, which is like, good strategy is doing what your customers can't do or won't do. I mean, what your competitors can't do and won't do. And so if you do have an online store and you're selling something that, say, like Amazon or Takealot could also end up selling, that what you can do is bundle those products or sell them in a way that Amazon or Takealot couldn't do. And so one of the things that we've done in the past was sold, because we had some information products where the margin was basically 100%. We bundled our information products with our real life products, because even though you could buy collagen at 1,000 other online stores, you could buy collagen from us and get 3 months access to our app, which was 300 Rands worth of value. It cost us nothing to give it away. It gets people into our ecosystem, but it's a massive value add for them. So instead of discounting, we could actually add on free stuff. So another example is like, I mean, it's very easy to put an online course together in a LMS, a learning management system. And so for anyone who buys your product, you could give them access to like a 3 or 4 lesson course on using that product more effectively, which is something that Amazon won't do. I mean, they probably could do if they want to do it, but like I would assume they can't and won't do it. And it's the same with Takealot. And so sometimes it's not about being the cheapest, because that can end up being a race to the bottom. It's more about being the most valuable. And being valuable means giving them more value.
Yeah, I think there's so many different pockets this conversation could go into, but there's also all these nuances that people need to understand, because all the industries are different and types of businesses are different. There are businesses like, I mean, if you go into I mean, I look at my parents that live in Still Bay. Across from them there's a shop that's founded by Chinese individuals, and all they do, and this is not a generalization, but that specific marketing strategy of those Chinese founders is, let's just sell everything at the cheapest cost, and undercut everybody, because that's how we are going to grow and scale. And to some extent that works. It's just that you need then the business logistics systems in the back to ensure that you still make it profitable eventually for yourself. And I think that's what people don't think about. But yes, you influence the market. I remember this in a retail setting, the retail setting I was referred to earlier, is like whey protein. When it came out, everybody wanted whey protein, and because everybody wanted it, people started chasing customers, and they discounted the product itself in order to get the attention of those customers. So because there was huge demand, they would get attention at a cheap cost by discounting the whey protein price compared to a competitor. And eventually protein became this loss leader where nobody really made money on it. However, you needed to sell it, and it was your number one seller, but nobody actually made any money on it. But you had to try and sell it as part of your range or your store's offering, because that's the main thing that people want. But what you do then is you get more strategic about everything else that you buy around the whey protein. Because if you buy whey protein, you still have a goal. The goal is either to build muscle or to lose weight. And whey protein can help you do both. But there's complementary products that can assist in achieving that specific outcome. So if it was losing weight, you would then try and upsell a fat burner, and maybe a CLA, and maybe a meal replacement as well, as a bundle that will allow them to still make the initial deal profitable. So one product essentially is priced at a massive discount, but you have these complementary products that actually end up making it profitable for you. It all comes down to how creative we really are with stacking and bundling your products. and to ensure that the actual sale is profitable for yourself. But to touch one last thing on Leonie's point is that we're sitting in a situation where the mushroom industry is funny enough. I feel you've got really great quality mushroom products, and then you've got average quality mushroom products, and some people are selling the ingredient for $100 and some people are selling it for $400. And I truly believe that if you can be transparent with the consumer and your marketing strategy can be includes clear communication of why the price is actually the price, and you have done that in a strategic way where they can read the product descriptions and it's explained in the videos and the website is clear about it, I believe that you can up the price of your product and make it profitable for yourself, even though other people are undercutting. It's just you need to explain clearly why the price is the price. And hopefully it's not a thumbsuck version. It's really something that says, well, our ingredients specifically come from this part of the world. This part of the world is known for better quality. Here's the proof and the objective studies that prove that that is true. So it's clear that our product is already better quality. Then also, we don't just have one ingredient like most competitors. We have 3. We blend those 3 to help you with the focus issue or the pain point that you have, as opposed to now going to buy 3 different ingredients for $100 each, which is $300. You can buy this product for $300 or for $249. That will obviously make it more valuable to you. And I think these are all ways that you can articulate the value to someone so they can go, okay, it is a bit more expensive, but I'm happy to pay it. Here's why.
Yeah, 100% agree. I must say, like, I haven't really found any pushback when I've been the most expensive. And I think that's one of the things that we try to do. We tried to be the most expensive. And it's something that Alex Hormozi talks about. In fact, he says something more. He says, don't just be the most expensive. Be so much more expensive than your competitors that people actually stop to really think about like what the difference is. And this doesn't apply to like commoditized goods like a lot of e-commerce products. But if you are the most expensive, there's a new sports supplement called Morton. And they call it like the Apple of endurance stuff. Do you know what I'm talking about? It's like a competitor to GU.
Okay.
And basically Morton, it's over 100 Rand for like one of those GU things, and a normal GU for a triathlete I think is like 35 or 40 Rand. So they are outrageously expensive. But what you'll see is all of these guys, because triathletes are typically quite affluent, and these guys who have time to throw like, at an 8-hour endurance event, they spend a lot of money on this stuff. And Morton's not financially struggling. And the point I'm making is, if you are fit and you take in glucose and electrolytes, like the quality difference in these electrolytes does not equate to the difference in price. Do you know what I mean? Like if you drink water with a teaspoon of salt, you're going to get quite a lot of electrolytes, and it's going to help you move forward in your event. If you take a Morton's gel for 120 Rand, and you're probably going to have like 4 of those over like, I don't know, a 30K trail run, that's 500 Rand or more that you're going to spend on that supplement. And I think I'm underquoting the prices, by the way. It's not going to make a difference. But somehow, because they're so expensive and they're beautifully packaged in these like black, slick packaging, people think, well, I'm definitely not going to run out of gas if I'm taking this stuff. So
it becomes a placebo effect where you believe the product is actually that good because your brain convinced you it's that good.
Exactly. Exactly.
So I think we've got 1 or 2 other questions. This is one from where's this one? From Antoinette. She says, does it help to place a retail price strike through, then a special price? Does the strike through help? So we have seen that when you do specials on your site and you are doing price structuring, 100%. This is 3 things that you need when you do a discount on your site, on your website. 1, have the was price, have the now price. That's the first thing that you have to do. Okay, that will show people what it was, what it is now. Don't just have the special price there, because then they don't know what the anchor price was. What is the actual anchor that you're comparing it to? That's 1. Number 2, and that includes your strike through, Antoinette. Number 2 is show the percentage discount as well. So show you save 10%. Okay. That is important because it further creates objectivity in their mind to what they're actually saving. However, it's not as objective as the third thing that you have to do, which is show the actual rand saving as well. Okay. So this is what we've learned the hard way through testing, is that by adding the price there alone, nobody knows that it's actually on a sale. So even if you say a sale, so if you say 20% off and you don't have a was price, people are not going to know what the actual was price was, because nobody can do the math that quick. And nobody wants to do, actually, they don't want to do the math that quick. The brain is resistant to anything that requires energy. So the brain just goes, it's 20% cheaper, but I don't know how much I'm actually saving. I don't know what it was. So therefore, I'm just going to move away from this or not take it at all and go somewhere else. So when you can show the was price and the now price, and you have a percentage discount, and you can actually show the tangible rand value that you're saving, those three things in combination creates a higher perceived value of the actual discounted sale, and therefore you'll have a higher conversion rate. Last thing on this is that the biggest reason you include percentage is because sometimes the percentage doesn't seem that sexy. Okay, so you're going to say it was $1,000, it is now $900. It's 10% saving. That doesn't really sound like a lot though. So you need the 100 rand saving. You also save $100. That makes someone go objectively going, holy shit, I'm saving $100 on this. Is actually a lot, because I can buy a lot with $100. Well, not today anymore, but the point is I can buy something with $100. So this is why you use both, because essentially some people might think the 10% is good. Some people might think it's bad, but you objectify it by actually showing the rand saving as well. And it works vice versa. Sometimes the 50 rand saving is not that much. They go, oh, I'm only saving $50 or $30 or $20. But then the discounted price would, the percentage price would show 15% off, 20% off. And that goes, oh, cool. That actually sounds like a good deal. And that's why you do all three. So that's just my take on that.
Yeah, in America, because the dollar is more valuable, they have the it's called the 100 rule, and for prices under 100 rand, they say you cite the percentage discount. I mean, for $100, and prices that are over $100, you cite the dollar amount discount, because like a 10. So sorry, yeah. So if it's an 80 rand, if it's an $80 price, and you're discounting it by like 10%, then you're discounting it by $8. Whereas if you said you're discounting it by if you're discounting it by $8, it's 10%, which is actually 10 is bigger than 8. So, but then if it's over $100, then you discount by the dollar amount. Then you mention the dollar amount. But yeah, I can't add anything to what you said. You pretty summed it up pretty well.
We just do all three as a standard.
Do all three.
Yeah, because essentially if it's across the website, you're not going to go, oh well, this one is only going to be 10 rand, so we're going to focus on 20%, and the next product is going to be 10%, but it equates to being a 200 rand, so we're going to structure this one differently. So it's just easier to do all three from a convenience.
Totally. Yeah, it's easier to brief that into your team as well. Did I lose you?
Yeah, I think my internet is struggling a bit, but I am back, I think.
Okay.
There's a couple of other questions here, Jono, if you want to run through it. I don't know if there's anything else.
Yeah, let's go.
I mean, I know we always have like 20 things that we want to discuss. We only discuss like 3 or 4, but I do believe we discussed the most important ones. But to ensure that people who are joining are getting the value, I just want to quickly run through this. So Tanaka says, great insight. How best do I justify our mid-range service prices for a artificial and paving business? We prioritize on quality and workmanship and looking to grow the brand in an industry filled with big companies and smaller companies offering the service at a cheaper rate. So I think I'm happy to start with this one, because I think V8 Media is in the same category where everybody's offering marketing services, but we have the price that we charge. And I think from our side is that building brand is the most important thing. People need to understand, what do you actually do and how you do it differently than everybody else. And I think everything starts there. Then the price becomes easier to justify. in my opinion. Like these lives, the behind the scenes vlogs that we do, the content that you see on my Instagram, short form, long form, all these things is part of us building brand. And the reason we do that is so that people can actually get a peek of what value they can actually experience if they had to be inside the agency. And I think at the end of the day, what we've decided is we're not the most expensive in the industry, actually, funny enough. We probably should play that strategy. But I also, funny enough, I don't know what it is. Like, I agree 100% with Alex. And he says, he has this quote that says, make your price so high that it almost, what did he say? Like, he had such a beautiful quote. He says, price your product so uncomfortably high that you can't help but smile when you say the price, or laugh when you say the price. And I agree with that to an extent. However, I also believe that I'm trying to serve people on a South African level in the South African economy, and I truly believe that our prices are fair. It's not the cheapest, but it's also not the most expensive. And I think if people do ask, hey, can you discount your price? We go, we can't discount our price. We can always charge you more. I think that's a kind of like a way to get them to understand. Cool. All right, this is your price, and you are offering it at a level that you think is fair. But I think brand is allowed us to be able to justify those prices for them. And I think it obviously then starts with educating people, really. So if we had to boil it down to what tangible thing you need to be doing, we can say build brand. That's a bit subjective. To me, on a more tangible level, that is educating people on what you actually doing differently and why that different mechanism, different approach is more beneficial to them.
Yeah, I think the key word that stands out there is differentiation. And like you said, so many industries have so many different players offering slightly different services at different rates, some cheaper, some more expensive. So I think for a paving, I think she meant artificial lawn. I think there might have been a word missing there. So like artificial lawn and paving. What is important to a homeowner or the kind of person who buys that product? Because if you are not the most expensive, then like I would say the most expensive person's angle would be like, we're the best. And you might well be the best, but how do you define the best? And that's really what I think it's important to communicate. So for me, I'd be looking at things like, what are some of the things that people experience before the sale and after the sale? Because if the end result is the same, they're going to have a paved garden or paved area, and they're going to have grass. Maybe it's like stuff like an extended warranty or guarantee, like for 2 years, we guarantee our product. And remember that guarantee and money back and stuff like these things are scary for a company to offer, but are very rarely actually taken up. So I've had a 100% money back guarantee for a decade, and only once did we have to refund someone for that. And then think about before sale. So the first part of customer service is the sale. If you get hold of a company and they take 24 hours to get back to you, that is, that's your first experience of their customer service. A lot of people say, "Oh, I don't want to be too salesy," but if you have like a 1 hour turnaround time, or you can guarantee someone a quote within, like a live on the call quote, like these are things that will help you differentiate and show that you offer great customer service and are better to deal with, even though you're offering the exact same end product. I read a statistic, something like 70% of the people who make a purchase decision for something to do with home alterations will go with the first quote that they get, and not necessarily the best quote, because the first person is the one who like dived on them and gave them that service. So being first, being the fastest, or offering the best customer service is often a stronger lever than the quality of your actual implementation.
100%.
That's one differentiator. Yeah.
No, I love it. Mark, how would you go about increasing your service price that has been the same for 3 years? I mean, is that answer is as simple as you go about just
increase it
because it's been 3 years? You can literally just tell your customer, "Brew, inflation is 6% a year. I'm technically 18% behind on my pricing because it's been 3 years." Obviously, not going to be that simple and that easy, but maybe it is. I mean,
I think it is.
I want to say it is, but I understand also from his point of view why he thinks it won't be. But sometimes we overthink these situations. And if you're just honest with your customers and say, we have been offering the same pricing, we've been trying our best for 3 years to keep this price affordable and fair for everybody that we obviously love to serve, because we believe in offering the most amount of value we possibly can. It is unfortunately time for us to increase our price to ensure that this business still stays afloat, and that we can continue serving customers at our best potential. And I think literally, you'll be surprised at what that would do to someone else who actually respects your service and has been enjoying working with you. They're going to go, damn, dude, of course, no worries. And there will always be a percentage of people who go, no, thank you, I'm not keen on this, I'm going to cancel. And that to me is 100% okay. What I've actually realized is that, especially when you've got customers coming in or leads coming in on a monthly basis, and you lucky enough to continue generating leads. Well, I don't want to say lucky enough. Like, you have to be strategic enough in order to create a system that can obviously generate those leads. But let's say you have leads coming in. It's easier to increase your price and have all clients leave and all people, like customers leave, who's been with you for a while, who's gotten accustomed to that price. And it's actually easier for someone else brand new who's never compared your prices to anything else before to actually get them to sign on to the new price, because there's nothing that they can compare it to. To them, it's like, okay, well, this is your price. So from my point of view, I think what I would do if I was you is find a way to generate more leads so that you can start selling your services at a brand new price that you think is fair to what you're offering, and then start increasing your price to people in your network, and the ones who leave. That's great. I mean, that is what it is. Your profit margins are probably going to go up thanks to them leaving, and hopefully thanks to you signing clients on a new preferred price.
Yeah, and there is like a slightly different option there as well, which is, if you've got people on an SLA, and you've been going for a while, and you're worried about them canceling, you can always retire that plan as a grandfather plan, and so that anyone who signs up onto this new package. Sometimes the easiest is just to increase your price and hold your breath, and my assumption is you'll get very few cancellations. But if you really are worried, you can look at ways that you could add more value, and perhaps add a few things that are valuable to clients that don't cost you anything or don't cost you too much, and add like a premium tier. And so you could offer your clients, look, we've got this new package which includes a fancy dedicated report, or maybe you've automated a process or something. And then you can upgrade them into the new plan and say, look, we're retiring this plan over 3 months. You're welcome to hop onto this new one, but then to only sell the new plan to new customers.
I love it. I think he said, thanks for the advice. Makes sense. Might be time to say goodbye to stingy customers. And it might not just they might not be stingy. It's just they can honestly not afford it. But that's life. You're not running a charity. You're not running a non-profit organization. Yeah, we're running a business that needs to keep funding itself, and hopefully the people around it, so that everybody can eat and everybody can benefit, and you can create more value in the marketplace. And you shouldn't restrict that ambition by listening to one customer who's upset about the increase in price, because they're upset because of their life scenario and where they find themselves in reality, not because of you actually increasing your price, but where they are actually finding themselves. So that's one thing I've realized as well, is like, you need to do what's best for you, ethically, morally, obviously as well. It's not that you have to be selfish, but that's why I'm saying, like, we could probably double our price and still get clients. However, how I look at it is that I don't want to put more pressure on my team, because the moment we double our prices, we will be putting our team under pressure, because customers will have a much higher expectation as well. And we've gone through a phase where we charged massive amount of money back in 2021, and to some people it's all relative, but we got so much. The team was so stressed out, because I think we didn't have the systems and the processes to justify that price, and now we probably do. But I think we had so much PTSD that we were like, I don't want to put the team under pressure in that way ever again. So we're very strategic with how we price our products in the market. We don't want to be the cheapest. We're not necessarily the most expensive. I'd say we're in the top 75%, or in the top 25%, or 20% probably even, or maybe even 10. But that's where we found our comfort zone, because how I look at our prices, and this is for anybody in the service space, is that I look at clients in, clients out, churn rates as well. So I look at price increase, churn rates, and how that's being affected. And then it's about finding the happy balance between the two. Like, how do we keep growing every single year to make sure profit margins are at a specific level? And how do we ensure that churn rate remains at a specific level? So if profit margins go up and churn rate goes up as well, I need to ask myself, is this sustainable from an LTV, lifetime value equation? Like, is this going to make sense? Because I could rather have less profit margins, but then keep clients longer, which will then offset, obviously, that loss as well. And I think that's what we've been playing around with, is like, what are the profit margins? How long does a customer stay for? What's the actual churn rate? And how does that correlate with price? And that balance between the three has allowed us to create a happy medium where we have some of the lowest churn rates in the industry, I want to believe, just because I know what the churn rate of most agencies are in the performance space. And I look at churn and go, if our churn rate is healthy, we can continue adding prices, increasing prices, until the churn rate gets to a point where we go, hold on, why is the churn rate double than it used to be? Is it actual service or is it actual price? You can then decide. But it will most likely come down to, okay, we may be outpricing ourselves in exchange for the value that we're offering.
Yeah, I mean, that makes perfect sense to me.
Lekker, man. So I'm just trying to see if we've got anything. We've got one more question. Any tips for a seasonal business where you only have 3 to 4 months a year to make money? How can you just justify paying staff and agencies for the rest of the year? I mean, my question.
Yeah, I would say don't. So I worked in catering before and restaurants in Cape Town before I went into marketing, and then wine as well, and all very, very, very seasonal. You make all your money in the summer, and then in winter you basically bleed. So yeah, I think there it's your overhead. The way to make money is to have really, really good relationships with people who can enable you to scale when you're busy, but to keep your base infrastructure only able to serve winter. So in other words, it's harder. I know this sounds pessimistic, but it is easier to retrench a staff member who you're paying 50,000 Rand a month than it is to fund 100,000 Rand a month in revenue at a 50% gross profit. If you're a small business, and that's across the board. So for the sake of everyone involved, like, I would say that your overhead should only be as high as it can be to be profitable in your months when you are at your lowest, and then have access to contractors or freelancers or whatever who can enable you to scale over the busy months. Because as awesome as it is to not stress over the busy month, the not stressing over winter or the down months is much better for your life. So that's the first business lesson. And then the second is to hoard cash, because I know it's like whenever that season comes and there's gross profit flying in through the door, it's so tempting to want to take everyone off at dinner and just breathe and whatever. And so I think you have to find a way to take a small percent of that and spoil yourself so that you have the energy to go and do it the following year. But the biggest mistake people make in seasonal businesses like that is they don't squirrel money away. So they end up knaping when it comes to the tough months the following year, every year.
Yeah. What I'm hearing you say, and correct me if I'm wrong, and this might be one of Alex's quotes, or I don't know who said this, maybe. But what I'm hearing you say is, when times get tough, go easy. And when times are easy, go hard. So it's like, when times are hard, go easy. When times are easy, go hard. And I think that's from a marketing point of view, right? That's how I look at it. It's like, when times are hard, go easy. Just take it easy. Obviously, don't stress about it too much. Absorb it. Don't get overly aggressive and overly don't do things that are obviously unnecessarily risky. And when things are going easy, when the cash starts coming in, that's when you go hard and make sure that you actually capitalize on that demand that's in the market. And I think when things are hard, people go hard, and then they lose money, a lot of money. And then when things are easy, they don't want to go harder because of the PTSD of losing all the money in the first place, or bleeding their money out. If that makes sense. So it's almost like when things are when money coming in is hard, go easy on your expenses and keep it lean and keep it simple. But when profit is coming in a very easy way, then you have to go get hard on the marketing side of things in order to make sure you capitalize on the demand that you can.
Yeah, and there's another thing there, a lot of, I mean, as an entrepreneur myself, it's lovely to have subscription business. To be honest, I'm not a great month-to-month manager. I'm much better with big projects that I can like sink myself into that have a beginning and end date that end. Like I'm an author and I've done TV shows and stuff. So like I'm not a great subscription model guy. But every business wants to have that recurring revenue. So as this business that is so seasonal, they will have marketing agencies and consultants who want to be on a subscription and have them as a retained client. But for that type of business model, it's probably not the best type of contractor to have. I would say if you've got 3.5 months of the year when you have to make it rain, maybe the best thing is to have someone who comes on for a 3-month project. All of your contractors come for a 3-month project, especially marketing, and you just have to negotiate a different model with them and say, look, for these 3 months, we need to develop a strategy and we need to develop all these campaigns. But I have to be clear, like, I can't afford to have you on for the whole year. So once this busy season's over, we have to go back to, like a different model of retainer or like a non-retainer so that I can keep my powder dry, as it were, for my off season. And that's kind of what I would do. And I suppose that's where you have to almost treat your contractors like wines, where there isn't a best or worst wine, but there is the right wine for the right occasion.
I love that. We unfortunately have to stop. We both have other things that we unfortunately have to get to. I would love to continue this. There was a question here. I'm going to see if I can answer this in the shortest amount of time. So just for context, she said, how do you grow a team to 2 to 4 people? I think if we're paying too little and wasting time training and hiring instead. And then this is obviously her comment based on what we said. She said, like, now money is coming in easy or, coming in, but I'm scared to hire because I don't want to lose the bucks. So from my point of view, I'd say we had the same issue at V8. We had 100% the same issue, is that we were charging too little early in 2018, 2019. And luckily I found good people who was willing to see the bigger picture and was willing to work, with basic salaries with the idea to grow it over time. We'll be very grateful for that. And hopefully there's people that you meet that would do the same, people who would see the vision and who would want to stick this out with you and grow this with you. But I think one thing you can get better at is just finding, like, I would want to ask, what does your hiring and training process looks like? If you're interviewing 3 or 5 people for a role, that's probably not enough. What we've done is we've realized, like, volume is the answer. You want to find diamonds in the rough. There are people with exceptional talent who's willing to start at the bottom, who has big picture mentality. And those are the people you look for. But to find those 3 traits in just randomly 5 people, it's probably going to be very rare. So you're probably going to have to interview 100 people in order to find 3 or 4 of those individuals. And you do that by being very strategic with your hiring process. So we run ads into a funnel that questions that obviously their skill sets, understands their salary expectations. We then do a one-way interview with Wamley software where you don't have to be part of the interview. It's literally recorded and they can't fake it because it's literally in real time for them. They can't go back to a question. So it's basically a question that pops up on the screen. They have to answer it best they can through video and audio. And then that is captured in the back end of the software tool. You can then go in and watch whatever you want to watch and score them the way you feel fit in order to get a wish list of people that you would obviously want to have one-on-one interviews with. Because the biggest mistake we've made is that we had 20 one-on-one interviews a week. And I realized all the HODs were on interviews and nobody was managing their teams because they didn't have the time. So they were getting overwhelmed, on those fronts. So we had to build a better hiring system. And then on top of that, build a good training system too. So my question to you is, like, do you have a mini course teaching people exactly what to do and how to do it? Do you have systems of procedures, SOPs, that run in your business, that tracks every single click step by step through Word, visual, and screenshots, aka screenshots and Loom videos, giving people that kind of feedback? So if you think of oversimplify this, you have to improve the hiring system in order to spit out volume of people who would essentially have those three abilities and traits and characteristics. And then you also have to improve your training system to ensure that the person that you hire gets up to speed quite quickly with as little involvement from you as possible. And that's really the methodology that we've applied in the hiring and training process on our side. Cool.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add to that. I think you nailed that.
Appreciate it. Cool. Lekker. Jono, my friend, it was so lekker to hang with you guys today. I've actually got your name on the screen this time. Like, for some reason we couldn't figure this out. So someone actually said, very insightful, Yandre and Jono. We're making progress here. So appreciate it. Thanks for all the patience and the love and joining in. We appreciate your time and your attention, and we would never take it for granted. So we're trying to do this consistently. Thursdays at 10. If you want to see us next week, make sure to set a reminder and maybe hit the notification bell on YouTube or join the mailing list, and we'll bomb off an email before we go live again. All right. Much love to you guys.
Thanks so much.
Great rest of your Thursday and a wonderful weekend. Sayonara.
Cheers, guys.